Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take a peek at Latin America here. Once my PowerPoint comes up, there we go. As next unit, we'll be doing a quick little short unit on Latin America. This is going to focus on the landforms and landscapes that are there. Just a little overview as we start. You have a map in your notes. You can utilize it as you need to. You don't have to add anything. I think it should be there, but that's up to you. So here we go. Latin America, big area, right? We're going to talk about all the way from the northern Mexico, southern U.S. border right here, all the way down to Tierra del Fuego, the very, very tippy tip, southern tip of South America. And so it's a really big area we have that encompasses all of Little North America, all of Central America, the Caribbean, as well as all of South America. And so I understand the biggest thing about this is that you're going to have a lot of landforms and resources here. It's a land that's really, really cool, very different than we talk about in Canada, but it has all these really cool features to it. A lot of highlands, a lot of lowlands, mountains and plains, very, very distinct and unique area. The two biggest things you should really know, though, in terms of the highlands, are going to be the Andes Mountains that run a long spine of mountains right along of Chile in this area down here, okay? And that's where you're kind of looking at that spot right there, okay? Also, Brazilian highlands, kind of these old mountains and hills are there, also in Guyana. So you have some mountains here, some highlands here. You also have a lot of really big rivers, the biggest one, of course, being the Amazon River that runs right through northern Brazil. One of the largest rivers, second longest river in the world, and largest by volume in the world as well. And going forward here, obviously, we talk about how big this place is, and it's a very enormous span of area. Latin America from tip to tip is 7,000 miles. That's a good number to know. Obviously, it encompasses a huge area, a lot of different cultures, a lot of uniqueness to it as well. And so it's kind of, this is a very large area we're talking as it goes from Mexico all the way down here to Tierra del Fuego in the very, very southern tip. As I said, a very unique, very cultural way, very large area. So we're talking Latin America. It's not just Mexico or just one place. Latin American culture is a huge area, and then it can be divided down to each individual country and ethnic group within that area as well. The Andes Mountains are the feature really stands out to a lot of people. These are the mountains on the very western coast, starting in Ecuador, going through Chile. With big long system of mountains, okay, runs on the coast. They actually do link up to the same mountains in the United States we see with the Rockies and Sierra Madres, same mountain chain. And these mountains are actually created by plate tectonics. And so as the Pacific plate is crashing up against the North and South American plates, those mountains are creating that process. And so it's a very active area with a lot of earthquakes and volcanoes. Many of these mountains are active volcanoes. They haven't had an eruption in them recently, but they are there. A lot of earthquakes do happen. There have been massive earthquakes that have happened because of this tectonic action in Chile and Ecuador, a lot of places on the west coast of South America. And so these are major earthquakes. We're talking 8, 7, 8, 9, 10, 7, 8, 9 on the Richter scale in terms of earthquakes. And so very large earthquakes, a lot of destruction. The Inca people once lived in this area as well and lived in the mountains and survived through all this process as well. Highlands are a little older, okay? So now you can tell that the Andes are a younger mountain because they're very craggy and rocky and all that kind of stuff, very jagged. When we go to the eastern side of things, it's more hilly, more rounded. That means that they're older mountains because they're more weathered and that the water and wind and all that kind of stuff has ground them down more. And so there are two big areas you can check there, the Guyana Highlands, the northeastern area of South America, and it's near Guyana. And then the other highlands in the southern part, too, of Brazil as well. And who's on the eastern side, the highlands are located there. You also have between the highlands a lot of plains, and so the llanos are a big grassy area that's in Venezuela and Colombia, and it's great for livestock grazing. So you see a lot of cows here, moo, as you see. And very similar to the Great Plains we talk about in the United States, or even the Great Plains in Canada as well. And so the idea of grazing and farming is a huge deal in these areas on the llanos that exist in Colombia and Venezuela. It's a big, huge green area. In the Amazon River Basin, a lot of very grassy plains called the Cerrado. Cerrado is this big, flat terrain, a lot of farming, very moderate rainfall. And it's the area's interior of Brazil, kind of near the river, but not quite, like the rainforest kind of area, kind of on the edge of that rainforest. And a lot of areas are very undeveloped, but it's been developed very rapidly now by farmers and that kind of stuff in Brazil. And so we're seeing a lot of these people pick up these areas and start putting farms, especially in terms of cattle ranching, those kind of things. And that kind of stuff in these areas as well here. Going to further south as well, we have the Pampas. So up here is your llanos. You have your plains on the Amazon here, and you have the very famous Pampas of Argentina down this way, which is a big grassy area, very similar again to Middle America as well as central Canada, where it's a lot of grassy area where a lot of cattle ranching happens. And this is where the gaucho takes place. This is the cowboy culture of South America in Argentina, and very similar to the U.S. cowboy culture here. And you see a lot of beef and production happening in that part of Argentina as well. Okay, so we're back here now. And so we see a lot of rivers that happen in Central America as well, and there are very few in Central America and Mexico. The biggest one being the Rio Grande that does make most of the border between the U.S. and Mexico, and it's a big river that way. Another big river that's known there too is the Orinoco River in Venezuela, that runs through Venezuela, about 1,500 miles long. And so a lot of people settle on these rivers early on, and still these rivers are very important today for communities and those kind of things as well. As the most famous river is the Amazon River, and you can see the very blurry picture I have here. The Amazon River is not just one river; it is a huge system of rivers that all flow into the Amazon, and so there's a giant basin, if you will, that kind of connects together to one big river that flows out this way. This is 4,000 miles long, second longest river in the world, and the largest by volume. And so it carries a lot of water from the interior rainforest areas where these rainforests get 100 or 100 200 plus inches of rain per year up in the Andes here, and then all the snow from the Andes as well flow all the way down through this river. And it carries more water to the ocean than the next 7 largest rivers combined, like the Nile and those kind of areas. And so it's huge because this area does develop people and the rainforest around it, and people travel that way, obviously with snakes and all those kind of creatures that live in the Amazon River. The piranha being, of course, the most famous one, lives there. And you can even find some sharks and stuff in the very mouth of the river that are a combination of both freshwater and seawater, called brackish water at the very mouth here, where the water is kind of between seawater and freshwater, and so animals can actually live in that very low salinity or very high salinity of water areas. Another river is called Piranha River, obviously named after the creature that lives in it, but about 3,000 miles long. It starts up here in the Andes and tracks down through Brazil into Uruguay. As this big wide lower course where it meets the tides, and just where you have that brackish water where it's kind of a mixture of both salt and fresh water happening. Now, about South America, let's talk about the Caribbean. And 3 big terms you have to know about the Caribbean are the types of islands that exist there: the Bahamas, Greater Antilles, and Lesser Antilles. Bahamas are one island group. Greater Antilles are another island group by size. Lesser Antilles are also another island group done by size. And so this is where Christopher Columbus actually landed. Did land in North America, right? All that kind of stuff. We'll talk about that later too. The Bahamas are coral islands. So there's coral reef search. Coral is this living substance, okay, built with all those little shells, those kind of deals. And it's the hundreds of little islands off southern tip of Florida. Nassau is the capital of the Bahamas, and a big tourist attraction, obviously. If you've done a lot of cruises, those kind of things, you may have gone to the Bahamas before. And that's what the Bahamas are, the little islands off the tip of Florida there. You have the Greater Antilles, and these are the larger islands. They're actually part of the North American continent and that continental plate. And this is the islands of Cuba, Jamaica, Hispaniola, which is actually 2 countries, Haiti and Dominican Republic, and then Puerto Rico as well. And so these 4 islands are the Greater Antilles because they are the larger and greater size islands, and those are actually literally part of the same continental plate that make up North America and the United States. We have the Lesser Antilles then, that are all little islands out here. And so all these islands are volcanic, actually, in nature, right on the edge of the plate between the Atlantic plate and North American plate. And they're all little volcanic islands that exist out here. So we'll find some earthquakes happen out here as well. Earthquakes happen here in Haiti and those kind of areas too, because we're so close to that edge. Now we'll talk about what side of the island you live on here. Either you're windward or leeward. So there's a wind that blows from the Atlantic Ocean this way, okay? It blows across them, bringing, the warm air, all that kind of stuff coming that way. And so if you're on this side here, you're windward, and the wind blows at you. The islands are mountains in the very middle of the island, so leeward means you're very sheltered from those northeast winds. And so on this side, a lot of people live because you're off those winds, and it's warmer and nicer and all that kind of cool stuff. The last thing about are the natural resources we find here in this area. And Latin America is this huge treasure trove of natural resources. It's been that way for a long, long time. Early on, the 2 big treasures were silver and gold. The early Spanish that were there mined a lot of silver and gold out of this area. And you have all these treasure ships heading from South America to Europe and got sunk in the bottom of the Caribbean by hurricanes, all those kind of things. But now the new one is oil. There's a lot of oil in the Gulf of Mexico as well as in part of South America. That's the new black gold that's happening there. Besides that, there's a lot of cool mineral resources all over the place. You have gold and silver, a lot of ores, so iron and bauxite, which you need to make aluminum, tin, lead, nickel. Um, all really important minerals that come from Latin America. The three big T's, titanium and tungsten, and tin are used for a lot of things in manufacturing and military stuff and all those different kind of materials that exist there. You do have some farming culture yet. Back in the day, Jamaica was based on bananas and sugar. But today, Jamaica, for example, mines a lot of bauxite. It's one of the biggest bauxite mining places in the world. And they do it to reduce, their dependence on agriculture and farming as well as tourism to make ends meet there. Also, energy production is a big part of this too. Obviously, we talk about oil being a big deal, and so they're starting doing hydroelectricity plants in Amazon and other rivers, and it's become a big deal. Start building those areas. You also have Trinidad, which is part of Lesser Antilles, which does a lot of natural gas mining out in the middle of the ocean there. Do natural gas oil mines out there, and oil in Venezuela. Venezuela's a member of OPEC, and Mexico is another oil country that are developing much more oil industry to themselves. And so here's the natural resources that do exist in this area. That's it. Pretty quick. Sorry, I'm a little coffee today. I apologize for that. Please make sure you check these notes out. Please make sure you finish them by the assigned day. And thank you for your attention. I'll see you guys in class.